It's here. It's 2023, and there's a new Indiana Jones movie, the final movie for Harrison Ford, supposedly, and it's not a sequel to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So, having said that, there's a lot of hype leading up to this movie because, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was not liked very much by most people. And this new Indiana Jones movie, The Dial of Destiny, is billed as sort of the swan song for Harrison Ford. Now, they might make more Indiana Jones movies in the future, but he probably won't be involved in them, or maybe they'll do more de-aging or something. I don't know. But let's talk about it a little bit, and I'll give you my mini review. Alright, guys, gals, non-binary pals, I got to see the new Indiana Jones movie early, thanks to Victor Lucas of the Electric Playground fame. So special thanks to him and everything he does to try to give fans advance tickets and stuff like that. And I even saw Mr. Johnny Millennium at the movie too, which was pretty cool. I know Victor had already seen the movie and reviewed it on his channel. I don't know if Johnny is, but I already know what he thought of the movie, and I'm here to tell you what I thought of the movie. Not that it matters. But I did see it in advance, so if you're on the fence about going, I don't know, maybe you'll get something out of this video that you didn't know before or something like that. So most people my age know Indiana Jones from their childhood, right? Obviously, the first three movies are complete and utter classics. They launched Harrison Ford into, one of the greatest actors of all time. And there's a ton of fanfare and goodwill and hype that this movie has to live up to. And, the big question is sort of, did it live up to the hype? And I gotta say, it was definitely a mixed bag a little bit. Overall, I do think the movie was pretty good. There's definitely some fan servicey parts in there, but it wasn't overwhelming. A lot of these send-off movies of old franchises are very, very annoyingly fan servicey. It wasn't beating you over the head in this movie, I don't think. There was definitely some scenes for sure, but it wasn't like a fan fiction written by some random guy on the internet. And I'm not going to go over much of the story here because it's a spoiler-free thing, and I might drift a little bit into semi-spoiler territory when I talk about what I want to talk about. There's definitely not going to be any major spoilers in here whatsoever. And so a little backstory on me, too. Obviously, I did like the original Indiana Jones when I was a kid. The first one definitely was not my favorite. I saw it a few times. I liked it, but I didn't love it. But growing up, I definitely remember on TV, there's TV back then. There wasn't the internet, so you just watched what was on TV. And whenever there was an Indiana Jones movie on just, regular free cable TV, it was always Temple of Doom. So I must have seen Temple of Doom, I don't know, 100 times. It probably is my favorite. I'm a huge Goonies fan, so I love, Short Round. Obviously, the same actor played both. So I definitely think Temple of Doom is my favorite of all time. The third one was obviously great too. Sean Connery. I was a huge James Bond fan when I was younger, and I loved Sean Connery and James Bond, and Sean Connery was his father in Indiana Jones. It was amazing. It was awesome. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was definitely mixed reception. I am not a fan of it whatsoever. They veered a little too far off the path, jumped the shark a little bit with that one. And you can sort of tell that in this new movie too, because in this new movie, it basically ignores it. It's like it never existed. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? Kingdom of the what? So the movie takes place years and years after all that. Indiana Jones is, his current age, Harrison Ford's current age. So he's getting up there in the age, right? He's a pretty old man. But just like people have seen in the trailers, there's a lot of past scenes that set up what's happening in the current world, where they use the, de-aging visual effects, which honestly are pretty awesome in this movie. I didn't mind them in, Rogue One and stuff like that. I know some people had a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it as long as, the original actors and actresses are involved. And, supposedly he did most of the acting, and they just de-aged his face, if that makes sense. So I did not mind it whatsoever, and I thought the old scenes to set up the new scenes were pretty well done. And the star of Indiana Jones, obviously, is Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones. He's Indiana Jones and Han Solo. That's just who he is. That's who he'll always be. And this movie, even though he's much older, is classic Indy in the character. The acting, the fight scenes, him getting beat up a little bit. He's a hero a little bit like John McClane in Die Hard, right? they get beat up a little bit, and that's why they're so endearing. He's just a dude with a hat and a whip. And he's co-starred in this movie with a new character played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who actually does a pretty good job. She's his goddaughter of sorts, without revealing too much. And while she is kind of just a generic character, she does work for the movie, and the actress that plays her did a fine job. I know there's already people raging, oh, there's a female lead character, so I hate this movie. You know who I'm talking about. But tune out that noise, right? And I won't give too much away, but there's definitely cameos in this movie from a lot of the returning characters from the original trilogy, which all played their parts well. None of them really had a big part in the movie. They were just there sort of for fan servicey reasons. However, the villain in this movie is played by Mads Mikkelsen, and he's pretty amazing in everything he's in. I don't think I've seen anything where he's not amazing, and he is picture perfect, the villain of this movie that you would expect. There's a running theme with a lot of the movies nowadays, like Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and stuff like that. They have amazing actors as the villains. He's 100% completely believable in his character, in his role, in his motivations, in his Nazi uniform. So I really didn't have any complaints with the performances of any of the characters. One thing that stood out to me a little bit was the movie doesn't have much action in it, which is supposed to be an action movie, right? But most of the action in the movie, unfortunately, was like car chase scenes, right? So it was kind of weird. And I think maybe I'm desensitized a little bit because the last couple of movies I saw were Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and Across the Spider-Verse. And like Across the Spider-Verse specifically, like almost every scene in that movie, every frame, every 5 seconds, visually, auditorily, there's something going on. There's like, it's like a Mr. Beast video. Like there's quick cuts and there's stuff happening all over the screen, and your mind's just constantly shooting around the screen and seeing different things. And it's like that the entire movie. So I think maybe my brain is wired like that a little bit, because this movie seemed very slow to me. It was very, very slow paced. It meandered a lot. It didn't stay on topic a lot. There was a lot of dialogue, and that doesn't necessarily equal a bad movie to me, but it was jarring a little bit as when I remembered watching Spider-Verse, how like intense it was. And then in this movie, it was just kind of like, So I do wish it had a little bit more action, but the pace of it wasn't too bad. And like I said, some of it might just be me used to these fast-paced, action movies nowadays, and that's not it. This matches more of the old Indiana Jones movies than newer sort of action movies. So you can take that as good, or you could take that as bad. That's up to you. Another thing to take as good or bad, and this is feedback that I've heard from a couple people after we've seen the movie too, is a lot of the Indiana Jones movies, they sort of choose a path. It could either be realistic or super like mystical or something like that. And like, for example, the first Indiana Jones movie was sort of in the middle, right? It was very realistic and actiony, but it had the Ark of the Covenant stuff at the end, right? Temple of Doom was more on the realistic side. Obviously, there was sort of spirituality and mysticism in it too, but it was sort of anchored in reality a little bit. The third one, about in the middle too, maybe a little over this way with the Holy Grail. Crystal Skull was way over here. It had aliens, purple weird skulls, and spaceships and stuff like that. So that was way over here. And that's why a lot of people didn't like it. And so without giving away spoilers, this movie, a lot of it, as I was watching it, I couldn't quite figure out which way it was going to swing. And it definitely swung way in one direction rather than the other direction. I'm trying to explain this without giving spoilers. And some people are not going to like the way it swings. Some people aren't going to mind it. So I didn't necessarily not like it. I thought it was okay. And that's the whole thing about this movie, I guess, is it's okay. Like, it's an okay send-off. The acting is good. The action is only okay. The plot is only okay. There's a lot of okays in this movie. So I would still recommend seeing it if you're a hardcore Indiana Jones fan. But I think more people are going to be on the okay side than like the fanatical, hey, this is a return to Indiana Jones. No, it's sort of a little fan servicey sort of send off to Indiana Jones. And like I said, that is right for some people, right? I enjoyed it for sure. Not my favorite movie of all time, not my favorite Indiana Jones movie of all time, but it has its place. And it's better than Crystal Skull. And they really tried to do a lot with the movie, especially at the ending, to sort of, you know, send him off on a good note. And I do think they succeeded in that. But I definitely wish it had a little bit more action in it. But I don't regret seeing it in the slightest. I think it's a good bookend to the Indiana Jones, 5-movie arc. It depends on if you're ignoring Crystal Skull or not, which I would suggest, but that's just me. So for me, if I was going to rate the movie, I'd probably rate it like a 7.5 or so out of 10. I did enjoy the ride. It was a slower ride. It didn't stay on topic all the time. It followed the trope of Indiana always finding stuff first and the bad guys coming right after him, which happens in almost all these adventure movies. But it's definitely not my favorite. If I was going to rank it all time, it would probably be 4th. It's better than Crystal Skull for sure, but it's not as good as the original 3, like in any sense of the word. But it's a worthy send-off, and I would suggest seeing it for sure. But anyways, just my opinion. So guys, gals, non-binary pals, you tell me what you think. When you get to see it this weekend, this video is coming out early because I got to see it in advance. Thanks, Victor Lucas, again.